Two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of the hosts, but tonight we are going on another birthday pick from my fiance, Tammy. Uh, Tammy, why don't you tell us what movie you chose for us this week, and why you chose it?
I chose Kiss the Girls, and I like Patterson's books, and I like Morgan Freeman as an actor. So the first time I watched this, it was kind of okay. Can't get much better. You got Patterson writing the thing, you got Freeman acting in it. Yeah, good thing, good movie. I just had a feeling it was going to be good, and I was right. So
Okay. Well, like she said, it is Kiss the Girls. It is filmed in 1997. It was directed by Gary Fleder. It stars Morgan Freeman as Dr. Alex, Phil Nunn, Brian Cox, among many others. Uh, and this is what IMDb says about the film. Police hunting for a serial killer kidnapper are helped when a victim manages to escape for the first time. So, I'll bring it back to Tammy so that she can bring us around to first impressions.
okay, why don't we go with my other birthday month friend, Jake? What was your first impression?
Alrighty. Kiss the Girls is a movie that I saw quite some time ago, honestly, and I could not tell you to save my life what the circumstances of that were. Uh, I have long been a a fan of Carrie Ells. I've long been a fan of Morgan Freeman. I've long thought Ashley Judd was very, very cute back in the 90s. Uh, and any one of those factors may have been part of my watching it. Although, honestly, I don't think I knew Carrie Ells was in it when I first sat down to watch it. I can't remember if I saw it in high school or in college. I really don't remember. Uh, it happened somewhere along the line.
Do you get into James Patterson's writings?
I have never read a James Patterson book.
Okay.
I know that is a very strange thing. There are a lot of, and I have checked out this book from the library intending to read it and just haven't gotten to it. But basically, I'm certainly familiar with his name and reputation. As someone who works in a library, I can tell you that that reputation includes a long running joke at his expense of most. If a Patterson book comes out now, the joke is, well, I wonder how much of it he wrote, you know? Because there's at least 4 books a year that come out with his name on them. At least. Usually it's more than that. And if the man wrote everything that has his name on it, he would never sleep. But I think back in the day when he was getting started, he probably did most of the work. And I'm pretty sure Kiss the Girls, I believe this was his second Alex Cross novel, which probably makes it very, very early for him overall.
He did Along Came the Spider too, which is after
Well,
this.
well, I think Along Came the Spider was the first Alex Cross one, but they made the movie second, I think.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I so my first impression has largely faded into memory, but I remember liking the movie. I remember thinking it was very dark. I remember thinking that Morgan Freeman and Ashley Judd made a good pairing and have worked together more than once. I think they work well off each other. I remember thinking that they were both really good in this. And I remembered the twist of all things I could remember. I did remember who the actual Casanova's who actually played him. So watching the movie this time was interesting because I had forgotten probably 90% of the film at minimum, probably more like 95%. I had forgotten so much, it was almost like watching it for the first time. But I think my first impression held pretty well. I had not realized how many other people were in this. Brian Cox, Mina Savari, some of the other folks that show up, Jeremy Piven. I mean, it's got a great supporting cast. So it was kind of cool seeing some of these people in their various roles. It was fun seeing how I overall it was a good one. It underlined my desire to eventually read the book, but yeah, I'm glad I got a chance to see it again. I was a little surprised I don't have a copy, but if I did have a copy, I probably would have remembered it better because I probably would have seen it again. So yeah.
Well, I myself haven't watched it in a while, and rewatching it again last night, it was just like, I'm going, I know this, I know that there's this, I know that there's this. Okay, who was it again? Okay, wait a minute, there's more than one of these. Okay, then little bits and pieces were coming back as to okay, yes,
Yeah, I had almost completely forgotten that there was a second kidnapper in the film. And there'll be spoilers. At least
I know
I'm
that
assuming.
David forgot, but I remembered when he sent the picture. When he took the picture of Ashley Judd and he sent that picture off, that's when I remembered that there was a second one. So, anything else did you want to add?
I'm good.
All right. How about you, Brandon?
Well, I guess I'll start off by giving you birthday well wishes right here.
I just called because I have to say happy birthday on your birthday day. Happy birthday on your birthday day. And there's a special delivery coming right your way. Your favorite.
A terrible take on a movie. But any case, with that being said, just as a because I missed the last one of yours.
And Jacob's birthday is 2 days after mine, so we gotta say happy birthday to him too.
Oh yeah, well, I'll be sure to play that lovely video again next week. But any case, yeah. As far as just a quick to say with intensity, I don't know why, but that one always reminds me of Desperation, which is a Stephen King one. even though they are very different in a lot of ways, I still felt like that it was not my favorite, but not something I considered was a bad film either. This one, I don't know why. The first time I heard the name, I was thinking Little Mermaid. Kiss the girl. But unfortunately, that was not what this was. I had never seen it before. I'd heard about it. Actually, I'd heard about Along Came a Spider, and then this was like tickling the corners of my memory that there was a film like this. And I admit, this kind of film I am mixed on usually because it takes a lot for me to get my interest up in these kind of true crime-ish, police procedural-ish type things. That's sort of like why I can never get into Law and Order. But there are some of these types of films that do really hit me, like Seven or things like that, these thrillers. This one I thought was well acted, and there were parts of it that were very interesting, but I admit there were a lot of parts where I zoned out on throughout. So the twist ending was definitely lost on me because my mind just kind of like glossed over a lot of the parts that indicated that person being there a lot of the time. Though, like I said, I thought some of the set design and some of the other things that were pretty good. So mixed feelings on it. And that's my first impression because it's the first time I watched it.
I get what you're saying. The crime shows and crime movies and stuff aren't for everybody. Me, on the other hand, is David knows I religiously watch all the new Law and Orders every week. I watch when CSI was on. I watched that. And what was the other
She
one?
watched Cops when it was on.
Not as much as this stuff. What was the other? There was one other one. I can't think of the name of it now. That I watched. That they're running reruns for it, but and then I watched the true crime stuff on ID channel all the time.
Oh, yeah,
Which is documentary shit.
Yeah, my wife is also a huge fan of this kind of stuff as well. So it's so I understand. She didn't seem as interested in this one as I did. I watched it with her. But it could also be that she was in a lot of pain at the time, so her attention wasn't probably in the right place. But yeah, like I said,
bugs me that I can't think of the other show because David used to even watch it with me sometimes.
Let's see, NCIS or
no,
they all run together to me.
There's the young guy in it. He's real young. He's a genius.
Are you talking about Criminal Minds?
Yes, Criminal Minds.
There you go.
That one was always one of my favorites, Criminal Minds. So, but on that note, David, what is your first impression?
Mine?
Yes.
I'm trying to think when I first watched this. I think I watched it before I met you, and I was really into Morgan Freeman stuff at the time. And I remember at the time thinking that the twist was so fucking good at the time. And for some reason, I remembered it being a lot more violent than this. But watching it again, it seemed rather tame. They more suggested the violence than showed it. I think that's what makes it kind of who can get into this kind of thing and not see the entire gore of things, but I thought it was definitely an interesting twist. Oh, here's Dustin. Oh. And I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed rewatching it again to just to remember what I didn't remember the first time. And I think I've seen it several times since, but it is an entertaining film, and it does keep you on the edge of your seat. So, that being said, hey Dustin.
Hey everyone. So,
uh,
slight
what
delay.
was your,
but,
was this a first time watch for you?
yes. So I had heard of this movie through different TV broadcasts that it had gotten. Somehow for some reason in the back of my mind I can remember "Kiss the Girls Tonight on TNT." Just like an ad for it. Like that's what was playing in my head when I heard that we would be covering this. Now it's like that seems familiar, but I've never seen it. And so I think this is based off of one of the Alex Cross novels, right? Like the
Yeah.
Yep.
Rob Pattinson writes those, right? Or
James Patterson.
James Patterson. Okay, I was at least close. I have a friend who was really, really into those books in undergrad, and I was slightly forced to read little pieces of them here and there. But I don't think I'm familiar with this one. But it was kind of nice to see what one of the stories with Alex Cross was like. I don't know if I assume this was based off of a book.
Yep.
I don't know how accurate it is to the book, but hopefully one of you guys do. But I thought this was pretty good. So it was a really solid thriller. Like it was more procedural, like about the investigation than like with Intensity. There was an awful lot of just kind of nastiness too. That was more into horror territory, I think. Whereas this was more about solving the case and like connecting the dots. I mean, we did see like bits and pieces of what the victims went through, but it wasn't super explicit or graphic. This was a movie that maybe on the right day my mom could handle. So, which kind of says a lot, but it was still, unlike a lot of those movies, it still managed to be very interesting and hold my attention, and it was pretty great. So I'm really happy I saw this. So obviously this was my first time seeing it today, despite hearing about it here and there. And yeah, I have pretty much nothing but good things to say. I did sort of see the final surprise coming. It wasn't who I thought it was, but I thought it would be something along those lines. So, but otherwise, pretty good. So.
Well, when we were watching it last night, I was sitting there going, "Oh, I know it's one of them. I know it's one of them." I was trying to remember which one it was, for the final, because, and I don't remember. I might have watched it the first time, like you were saying, I might have watched it the first time on cable. All I know is when it came up for me to watch it, I knew that Patterson was behind it, and I knew that Morgan Freeman was in it. And that was enough to get my interest to watch it, So.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I'm finding that now that I've watched it a second or third time or whatever the fuck it is, I don't feel like this is like a one and done type of situation, because I can remember the Sixth Sense ending and twist just like that, but this one, because it had been so long since I'd seen it, maybe about 6 years, the reveal, I had to remember it as it was going along, so it wasn't like, okay, I know this twist and I know it's coming, and that makes this film boring to me, kind of thing, which I know some people can be turned off from a movie once they know the twist,
See, to me, it's not about the twist or knowing it was coming. To me, that wasn't even a big deal as far as what parts of the film I enjoyed. I mean, to me, the most enjoyable parts of the film had nothing to do with the twist or the mystery. To me, it was all about some of the more interesting aspects of where the killer was hiding out, the kind of like set design there, or the well, really, that was about all that I really
Well,
liked.
Yeah.
what about Morgan Freeman's character himself? That I'm sure probably interested you somewhat
Oh yeah.
because of him being a forensic psychologist. You know.
Well, he's both a police detective and psychologist, so
You-
those are two powerful things in law enforcement. It's not every day you have a police officer that's kind of both, you know.
You would think so, and I would think so normally. His character bothered me on several levels, almost as if it was written by somebody who knew what a forensic psychologist was by what they read on the internet. But
Could be.
but then again, I'm more of a. I mean, like I said, I found the character very flawed, but maybe that was a part of the whole intrigue of it. As I say, I don't.
So you don't think he researched what a forensic psychologist really is that much for the character?
I think a lot of the methods were there on the surface, but I don't feel like they studied how they worked in practicality.
Okay.
Right.
But then again, you never know. I mean, I felt like there were certain things that bugged me about it, whereas he is presented as this cool character, yet he does fly off the handle, being manipulated by the guy when he's interrogating him, when he knew well in advance that that's the kind of tactic he was going to pull. Which, I mean, yes, it does show a flaw in the character. And I would admit, if he was blindsided by it and didn't know anything about it, that would be one thing. But since he knew it was coming, it was a flaw that I felt like in the writing of the character. The fact that he wouldn't have likely lost his cool.
Or like if he knew he was going to lose his shit, he should have stood back and let someone else do that. You know?
Yeah, exactly. That's,
I
So-
think he felt like he was strong enough to actually handle it, but you know,
Probably.
it's hard if you've ever been in that kind of a situation, because I was a correctional officer for a while, and it is hard, when they start sputtering their mouths and saying things. It's hard to just bite your tongue and just realize they're trying to get a rise out of you. They want to get a rise out of you. Just don't do it.
no, I know how that works. I mean, I have seen a police officer punch an 8-year-old until they were unconscious because the 8-year-old taunted the police officer long enough. I don't think that officer is necessarily an officer anymore. I know there'll be plenty that would probably defend his actions, but again, yeah, at the same time, the officer should have had enough training to deal with that.
It is hard, no matter how much training you have. It's really hard. You got to sit here and just, they don't know me, they don't know my life, they don't know anybody in my life. They're just trying to see if they can get under my skin, and you got to keep repeating that and repeating that and repeating that to yourself.
And that's why it's important to know your limits.
That it's only words. That was my thing that I went by. It's only words.
I mean,
So every time somebody would start it up, that would be my thing in my mind. It's only words. Only words. Just keep on going.
Well, words have a lot. Words do have a lot of power. Yeah.
Oh yes, they
what I
do.
say?
It's just if you're in that kind of position of authority, words can not be powerful in your mind.
Well, that's why you really have to know yourself more than anything else. And
because I had trained myself so well for that, when my ex and I broke up, we were in the bar and he was on one side of the bar and I was on the other, and I just ignored him. And I went up to the jukebox, and he went up there, and he is right in my face, just trying to get me to whatever, And I went back and sat down. He went to the bathroom. He came back, and all his, except for his personal stuff, everything else was off the bar, and he was told to leave. And when he left, everybody looked at me and said, "How could you just stand there? How could you just ignore him? How could you?" And I said, "Simple. It's only words. Now who's gone and who's not?" I
Right.
said, I just didn't give in to what he was trying to do.
And that's the thing, and that's why I say, yes, it can be rough. I understand. I've had to hold my cool when somebody's had a knife on me. I've had to hold my cool when I've had a gun on me. I've had to. Do all that, but but that's the thing, is you got to know your limits. And Freeman's character is supposed to be this really, like, not just a forensic psychologist, but one of the best. So
and collective.
So he is the one who's supposed to know his limits better than anybody. And
the only thing I could think of that they were trying to show by doing this was that he's human.
Well, I mean, they wanted to show a point of weakness so that they could have it come back again when they got to the end of the movie. They had to have something for him emotionally to overcome. I understand the concept. It's just, it didn't fit for me with the character. Showing him conflicted behind the scenes and showing him conflicted while in the middle of the job, that's where that difference is. For me. Again, for me.
Right.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And you saying that kind of makes me think about it. Well, it is his niece. That is his niece.
And at that case, he should have stepped back.
And more than one person kind of says, "Are you all right to do this, man?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I am."
Because if he is as good as they put him out to be, then he would have known whether he could have taken that, because he knew the guy was going to do that. He indicated he knew as much. But again, that just but again, that would mean to me that he is nowhere near as good as they set him up to be.
Well, at least this was an early Alex Cross novel. If this was like well into the series, then you'd be like, "Holy shit, man, can't you get your stuff together by now?"
That's true. That'd be like showing a House episode where Dr. House in season 10 cracks under pressure.
Right, yeah.
He lost his shit over his niece. Just to think, if it had been his daughter, would it have been even more stronger?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, that's the reason why you have to make sure at some of these cases that you gotta recuse yourself. I mean, if I had somebody who came into my business and I knew who they were, I knew them, or they were family, or let's say in these cases he had killed family of mine, there's no way I would be there seeing the man. That wouldn't be ethical at all. That would have been like totally unethical, because like I say, that would be, I would never be able to give that person the level of care that person needs. And I mean, in my job, like, even if I had somebody in my job, theoretically, if I had somebody who killed a friend of mine, who killed somebody close to me, they have the right still to the best services that they can get. Probably not from me, but that's the case. Sometimes you got to pull yourself back,
Mm-hmm.
No, I get it.
In a sense, another thing that is interesting about Alex Cross in this one is that, first of all, he essentially takes time off, takes personal time to go essentially assist not just another department or another jurisdiction. He's in a whole other state well outside of his usual jurisdiction, and he pretty much goes there on an advisory level. But then as the story goes on, and I'll admit my attention wandered in this middle part, and I kind of lost track of how they ended up in California. But basically, we had not only Alex Cross, but a whole team of people in another whole new state and jurisdiction. So there was definitely some what you could almost call borderline vigilantism going on with these cops, because they were definitely doing the cop thing without paying much attention to jurisdiction, if that makes sense. So that was kind of interesting. But on the flip side, one thing that can be said for this particular story-wise, the advantage to that is that when you see the twist and you see who Casanova really is, he probably never would have been caught if an outsider hadn't come in. You know what I mean? Because
if somebody hadn't broken the rules, because he ended up being someone with a great deal of control over that kind of thing.
Exactly. He was someone who was right in the thick of things, someone who was part of the official investigation. He could have strung that along probably indefinitely if someone hadn't come in from the outside and shaken things up. So from a storytelling standpoint, it makes perfect sense to bring in an outsider like Alex Cross. But from a normal, this is how law enforcement is supposed to go, theoretically, yeah, this film definitely plays fast and loose with some of those rules.
Just a little bit. And I think most agencies would also frown upon it because of one of the girls being his niece.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Definitely. Now, of course, we were talking before about the twists and all that kind of thing. And yeah, we've already given everyone the spoiler alert. So, you know, whatever. I'm going to say only half jokingly that it's not an accident that Casanova happens to have a very, very, very broad accent. He definitely talks like a caricature of a Southerner. And one could wonder if that has something to do with Cary Elwes being British. Yeah. But if I'm remembering correctly, let me see here. I think I'm remembering this correctly. Yeah, Brian Cox is Scottish, and he has a perfectly legit North Carolina accent here. So I'm kind of feeling like the Ills probably played it up on purpose. And when, you know, and Casanova's voice actually does sound pretty much like an American. So I found that kind of amusing once I was like, they were kind of telegraphing that from the beginning just with the cartoonish accent. But anyway, just a thought. But
well, Tammy, did you want to bring this into the plot then for us?
Okay, well, the plot basically is these girls keep missing, and they're basically, if I remember right, they're all co-eds, and
more or less,
they're all strong-willed.
Yes, strong young women.
Yes,
And most of them
And-
are co-eds, but Ashley Judd's character is a doctor intern, so I guess grad school. I guess you could still call it a young co-ed.
I think began with a chase in the woods.
Right. Well, we had a girl who attempted to escape, and her captor didn't much care for that, and so then we cut a few scenes later to her being found in the woods.
Right, and that's about the time that Alex Cross's character gets word about that his niece is now one of these girls that are missing. And so he
Right.
decides to go and see if he can help in this matter. And when he gets there, he does not know when he gets there that this is all going on. He wanders into while waiting to talk to the police chief for 2 hours. He gets sick of waiting. It starts wandering around the police station and ends up in the room where they've got the wall of each girl and the pictures and what happened and this. So now he realizes that this is a lot bigger than just his niece.
Yeah.
And that's when he gets invited to go along to the finding of the girl in the woods. And he runs into is the guy that he runs into is he the actual police chief there, or is he just somebody that
There is a
no one
police
from-
chief there, and I believe he's played by Brian Cox.
Yeah. The chief,
Okay.
Chief Hadfield. Yeah.
and that's somebody that he's known actually for many years? Or is that the other
No,
gentleman?
that's not the guy he's known for many years. There's another detective.
Samson's the one he knows, right?
Yeah, and I
Which-
remember, I
didn't-
remember him on what is it, the Angels in the Outfield, being the snobby microphone dude announcing the games.
I was going to say there's a connection with one of my previous birthday month picks. Bill Nunn played Radio Raheem in Do the Right Thing. He's been in a lot of stuff over the years. He's a pretty well-known character actor. We got a few of those in this movie, actually. But is the other country bumpkin that goes, Nick Ruskin is Cariola's character. Is Sykes his partner? Am I remembering that correctly?
Pretty sure.
Yeah. So they're the ones that come in and find Cross looking at the wall and invite him to come on out to the crime scene. And yeah, that's so you got Alex MacArthur as Sykes and like the Cariola's as Ruskin. And at this point, do we meet the Fed? We meet the feds at the crime scene, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
And J.O. Sanders
That-
plays.
That's
He's-
who Bill Nunn is part of. He's part of the FBI.
Okay, so Kyle Craig is one of the guys that Cross knows pretty well. He's one of the feds, and he's the one they kind of have a little tete-a-tete where they get caught up on what's going on.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to add up until this point?
I feel like one of the reasons they kind of make a big deal about playing up Cross as a character, like his reputation, like his accomplishments. They do that briefly, and I think it's suggested by the movie that he's allowed to go on the investigation pretty much just because he has so much clout. Like he has, like everybody knows who he is. Like he commands so much respect for his work. They're like, well, you're here. Let's have you look into this too. So because they seem to just kind of do whatever.
I like
he,
the comment that the
you
one
know?
guy made. You could be here and everything, just stay out of the kitchen.
Yeah, that was kind of wild. It's like, what do you mean by that? Yeah. And Cross didn't challenge it himself, but I felt like something about the performance was like he wanted to say something. So yeah, that felt a little bit like a character moment for that, with just like the stubborn sheriff. It's like, we don't need your help around here. So
Well, the look on his face said it all, though, because it was kind
yeah,
of like, you're right. I'm here. You think I'm not gonna get involved? You don't think you're gonna keep me out of the kitchen? But he was. That was the thing about Cross's character. He was, except for the thing that we were already talking about with the one interrogation scene. He's very cool, very collective, very. He says what he says at certain times, and he makes his points and everything, and it's almost like he doesn't care if he ruffles feathers either. He is who he is, and this is it. So
exactly.
okay, well, moving on. I guess we get to see meet Ashley Judd's character, and we see that she's actually got very busy, very very busy life. She's an intern, a medical intern. So we see her doing surgery. She goes to do kickboxing. You know, um, and we know that she does. She's studying. She's still studying, and it's like she's got a very very full plate. You know,
Mhm.
but she's very strong willed also, and we get a sense of that she is not gonna be put down by anybody, which um we're gonna find out that doesn't always work right the way you think it's going to. You know, being the strong-willed.
Nope.
At least,
And
at least
I do think that there is a patient that comes onto her table that she is not able to save. That happens during these medical moments, and she has to go and tell the people that there's nothing more that they can do. You know,
no,
I
she
think.
was able to save her, but
Oh,
she's in
she
a
was.
coma. Yeah, it's an 8-year-old girl, and she's now in a coma, and it's obvious that the family, English is not their first language, so she's trying to explain things to them, and trying to still give them hope because the little girl is in a coma. And it's hard. It's You could tell it's hard on her to tell this family that this 8-year-old child is in a coma, and try to make them understand this. And then she knows. She also knows how the little girl got there too.
Yeah.
So I mean, so she's probably, in a sense, also fighting some of her anger that this little girl's father didn't think enough to protect her and put a helmet on her head while he took her for a joyride on the motorcycle. And
Yeah.
that's how she ended up there. So,
But we do get a sense that someone is watching her.
correct. So, yes, after her day is done, she's in her, I like in her house. It's, we find out later it's a family. It's been in the family for many years. So when she hears creaks and stuff in it, she sometimes is that creak part of the house, or is that creaking board something new?
Yeah.
Because she wakes up to thinking she's hearing somebody in the house, which she was right.
Yep.
Indeed.
Because to the audience, someone is closing shades and moving around in the home, and unfortunately, she gets back to the room too late or whatnot. And she gets kidnapped.
Well, she gets chased. We're talking about the Kate, right? And
Yeah, we're talking about Kate. Yeah.
so she gets chased, and this film answers the rarely asked, but I'm sure frequently ruminated question of, well, why don't I put my aquarium at the base of the stairs? Pretty good reason not to. You see in this movie.
Not a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I fall down the stairs, I might fall right into it.
That was rather odd placement for the aquarium.
Yes.
I figured she knew what she was doing.
Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time, right?
I thought that was something the killer did, or the kidnapper did.
You ain't moving a tank like that by yourself, especially without making a lot of noise.
I thought this was like something like the movie The Collector, where he was just setting all the traps in the house. So I remember that movie, like everything is fine, there's no traps, and then as soon as they go back, like minutes later, the whole thing's booby trapped. And I was like, oh, that must be what this is.
That drove me nuts when I saw The Collection. Like, he puts like a wheat thresher, like he installs like a wheat thresher that like sweeps the whole dance floor of this club in the like ceiling. How did he do that? Like, it's impossible. You would need like a crew of people in like 10 weeks.
It's actually Kevin McAllister. It's Home Alone rules.
I felt sorry for all the little fish.
I did too. I felt really bad for the fish. That maybe almost bothered me more, honestly.
What happened to all those poor fish?
That her falling into the aquarium ended up getting her captured, and she wakes up. There's obviously some bandages nearby, and all you hear is the voice of her captor explaining to her the rules.
Well, yes, he explains to her that there are rules, and the whole time you can tell she's groggy by something that he has given her. He told her this, yes, there are bandages, so she can change the bandage. I took the liberty of taking out all the glass from your wound. He's trying to talk to her in this like totally soothing, romantic kind of voice, but it's the things he's saying that are the actual words that are threatening, not how he says it. It's what the words are, So,
and here are the rules. I must ask you not to call out to anyone or anything. Do not try to escape.
And what does she do the first chance she gets?
Anything else?
The first chance she gets, she's yelling out that little area in the door.
Oh yeah, breaks the rules right at the very beginning.
Oh yeah. She's right out the bat, just and ends up breaking the rules.
But then she does realize that she is not alone.
Yep, she starts hearing the voices of the other captors after she's screamed at by them to shut up because that will get her killed. And I do think that they all end up telling her her name, including Naomi Cross.
So we're basically up to the point where she does the Great Escape. Now,
Whoa. There she goes.
Whoops.
she falls, she runs, she falls. She keeps turning around, so then she runs and she falls. It's like, just run! Straight ahead. Don't look back.
Well, she's
Just
running
go.
through like a mine shaft. I mean, it's gonna be uneven ground.
Yeah, there's uneven ground in the woods too. I understand that, but if she would quit turning around and looking behind
She's
her,
also
then she would-
drugged, so
Right.
so
And she doesn't
yes, I
know the way
understand that,
out.
but if you keep turning around and not be looking forward, you wouldn't, you wouldn't be tripping over stumps and trees and everything else. If you focused, it went straight ahead and just kept going.
And I'll give it this. Amityville. No, sorry, Amityville. Darn it, my head is on Amityville. I will say this: she did have some fighting experience, even though he did warn her, "Don't use any of that kickboxing stuff on me," which is breaking another rule. So she did have that, but I guess like anything else, you kind of expect her as a badass to have been able to get out, but he was able to break her a lot quicker than most would have thought. She was mostly broken when she left. It was her last bit before she was totally broken.
yeah, and before she jumped off that cliff into that river, you could see that her one eye was like almost like blooded up with having to have run through, gotten hit, and definitely some blood vessels were boiling there before she jumped. So she looked a wreck when she was found. And
Yeah, I'm surprised at that hospital scene later, after she was found, how bloodied and beat up she was, because it didn't look like she was really taking all that many like hits from him or whatever. But I guess that was all from the fall, because she ends up having to jump off of a cliff to avoid him. So I think that's what it probably was mostly, right?
According to IMDb, Ashley Judd tried really hard to do all her own stunts, but the execs put their foot down and said, "No, you're not jumping off a cliff." So someone else did that.
Oh, but why not? That was what I was looking forward to. Not. I would have been like, oh yeah, sure. You can have somebody else do that part. Yeah, okay. Go ahead. No argument there.
It's like that. What was that movie? It was the movie about like was it The Fugitive, where he did that jump scene?
I think so.
Could be. There is a similar scene. Not off
They're on that like dam or something, and they jumps out.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
And of course, they parody it on Jay and Silent Bob. And then, of course, Wrongly Accused.
Oh, yeah.
Bigfoot. I'm not Bigfoot. I'm Kong. They jump off, and Kong also. They jump off a cliff.
Yeah. There's a lot of those that happen.
So, anyways, yes, she gets rescued by some fishermen. She's in the hospital. She is, under a different name. Alex Cross shows up. They have some nice discussions, and she thanks everybody when she's good enough for everything they've done for her. And she basically tells Alex, because Alex is the one that figures out. They tested her blood to try to figure out what Casanova was giving her as a drug, and nothing was showing up. And Alex Cross finally came across. He figured it out, and this is how they end up over in California, because they do a trace and find out who has ordered this drug, and it came back to a doctor that does plastic surgery, which would have no use for this drug in plastic surgery. So that is how they end up going out there.
Well, yeah, that was the best way to trace who it was, and it ended up being the William character.
Right, and she insists on going with, and Alex gives in. So
that was a pretty good scene, just showing, I guess, more of Alex Cross's like competence, that he is like really good at what he does. So he's able to like look at the symptoms and figure out that there's a drug that would cause those symptoms that doesn't show up in the toxicology report, and this one specific like variant of it would avoid like all the tests that they've been doing. And I think he might have died if he hadn't been there. So it kind of, that scene kind of emphasizes his value to the investigation too. Like, and that's another reason I don't think he. I mean, yeah, it's a movie, and the idea is, it's a movie about this guy. But I think that's a scene that just proves like how valuable he is to the investigation, and that like nobody else would have solved this case.
I believe you're right, though. I believe that there was mention that they didn't understand why she was kind of like her system was shutting down when they couldn't figure out what drug it was that was causing, what would be causing her system to be shutting down, So I believe you're right. If he wouldn't have come across it or figured that out, she might not have made it.
Yeah, because it immediately showed him doing research and everything. Yeah.
I think I remember mention of that the doctor said, well, all her, superficial wound, all her wounds are all superficial and da 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 da, but we just can't understand why, this is happening. So yes, they go and get like everybody possibly they can involved out in California to go check out this, and they do surveillance on this William. And
yep, I do like this moment where he's like, "Are you suggesting a stakeout?" And she's like, "Yeah, the kind that has stale coffee, sandwiches, and all that jazz." No, I'm not talking about that kind of stakeout. I'm talking about the kind of stakeout where you just go and hide yourself in the car and you think about the stale coffee and the donuts, So I thought that was kind of a good line. But in any case, they do have the stakeout.
So yeah, any thoughts about what's going on now and with all the police that are getting involved in this and the whole stakeout bit and finding the cabin and all that? We're up to that before he. This is before he does anything.
Well, yeah, and he chooses not to involve the FBI at this moment, too.
Well, at this point, they're watching him. William hasn't done anything yet, but now they know that he has this residence. He has the cabin. So they think they're
Well,
all gonna. They think they're all gonna go in this nightclub and not be noticed.
right.
Well, he didn't notice them at the nightclub. Like they pretty much just caught him.
Yeah.
They tailed him back to his house and they stopped him from like abducting someone else.
Well,
True
yeah,
that, but it was still botched because they couldn't catch him.
I still think that not her, but I think the other three would have stood out like a sore thumb in that club. Even Alex, but yet somehow, they're like 2 pool tables away from him, and he doesn't realize that maybe these people just do not belong here.
I guess he's just not that much of a paranoid, serial kidnapper.
No, I don't think he was pure. He thought he was all that. He thought he was better than, he's
He
been
thought he
getting
was
away.
covering his tracks.
Right. He's been getting away with it for so long. He just thinks that
They won't find me.
I'm untouchable.
Yeah, well, that guy was kind of arrogant anyway, so.
Oh yeah, I thought he was very arrogant. You see that later on too about how arrogant he really is. So what you guys think about the whole scene at the cabin? The whole,
Oh, the fact that he got a drop on them to begin to start with.
You talking about the cabin in the woods scene with Randolph?
Yeah, would that be Jeremy Piven's character?
Rudolph. Yeah. Yeah. Where, if I recall correctly, I believe the young lady in this scene is Mina Savari, yes? Before her big American year 99.
Yeah, she's just barely barely seen on camera and barely a victim.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, he had the ropes around her arms. Like he was ready to go. Like they showed up pretty much exactly when they needed to, like last minute. And like I guess somehow he was onto them and started escaping before they like came into the house. So.
Well, yeah, and he was able to kill one of their guys, and he was able to get away, which, yes, it was a kind of a win for them because they saved the victim, but in the captain's eye,
they screwed up.
They screwed up.
They dropped the ball.
It's a loose cannon.
Plus, they kind of pissed off the FBI for not bringing them in on it.
Now, when they did find the actual like Civil War whatever thing that they found, was I right to say that it was just Morgan Freeman and the woman, that was it? They didn't tell anybody where they were going. It was just straight out there.
No, there was other people in the woods, combing the woods. They were trying to find. They were going off of the thing that there was a plantation at one time there, and that it had all the buildings, and that's what they were.
The boyfriend of Naomi was actually one of the people that went with them,
Yeah.
because he knew about like some of the plantation and tunnels that were underneath.
But before that, though, if I'm not much mistaken, because I believe this is the case, that they did have that scene with out in California in the cabin in the woods with Rudolph, and I believe there they saw a picture of Dr. Wick Sachs, very unfortunately named character, who becomes sort of the patsy. You know, the police are like, "Oh, this is the guy we want,"
Yeah,
and so they kind of took him first.
fact,
And I think Brandon, this was the scene you were talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah, where he basically,
Yeah.
I mean, they knew what he was up to. They even told him, like, you know, look, he's going to talk about your, you know, your niece there. So you might want to, it's like, no, I got this. Nope, don't got this.
that was the second. Was that the first time he went off on someone, or the second time?
First time I remembered him going off on somebody, but I could be off on that.
Yeah. Well, that dude had a sex room in like behind something, so the police were like all over that guy.
Oh yeah.
And,
Well,
they were ready to close the books on that guy.
The thing is, he was very well. First of all, he was arrogant as shit.
Yeah. Which is how he was easily caught.
He was very, very open.
Yeah.
Very open about the fact that to him, basically, women are conquests, and he would do what he wanted. You know, that was.
He also went even further and took the credit for Naomi and in fact killing her.
Well, no, he did not. As far as I understood, he did not claim to kidnap or kill anyone, but he did claim that she was into him. He was talking in a very explicit manner of trying and succeeding in his mind to get a rise out of her in order to get a different kind of rise out of her uncle, basically.
Yep. Well, she was in my office. She wore these silk shirts, and I purposely lower the temperature in the office. You know, and telling him, you know, the things that he was doing.
Yeah, but it was an illustration of his level of arrogance that I think he knew, or at least he should have known, what he was there in suspicion of.
Oh yeah.
And he couldn't have thought it would look good for him to be that explicit about what his actual proclivities were. But he really was doing it just to troll Cross. He was doing it just to mess with him. But if
he wasn't a kidnapper, he was at least a serial perv.
Well, there's no doubt about that.
He was definitely a serial perv. That's not even an issue.
Yeah.
He admitted to it as much, actually.
He was a good example of someone who wasn't breaking the law, but my God, he was exploiting it, and he was exploiting what was considered acceptable, even if it's not technically acceptable in polite society.
I'm kind of a little confused as to what his role really was in that. Like, they're end up being two killers. Like, did they have some kind of deal with him? Is that why he was sort of stonewalling the investigation? Like, what exactly was his deal? Because I was not exactly clear on it.
Well, he knew the
I
guy
think
that
he
was
just.
doing it. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I think his role in the whole thing was, he was the suspect. He because of all his nice things that they found in that spare room. I think he was just riding the wave because I don't think I think he would have stopped it if it got too far, but I think in a way he almost liked the idea of being considered the Casanova.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's a chance of that. That he was smart. He was arrogant as hell, but he was smart. He probably would have been very cautious about saying things that he couldn't unsay in court, basically. But as long as he didn't cross that line, he would have said anything he could to get a rise out of Cross, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think he was ever actually approached by either of the two, but I think it might have been Cross explicitly said at one point that he thought they had his picture specifically to throw the police off track, basically. And he would have been, I think there's a good chance that Casanova would have known this guy, at least by reputation. They
Yeah.
probably traveled in some of the same circles. And there's a very good chance he would have encountered him more than once, especially if the guy if what he said about Naomi was true. If he actually had a history with more than one of these girls, it's a good chance that he was very well known to Casanova and that he was picked as someone that they would bring down if they needed to. I doubt he was aware of that role.
Yeah, I think that they were. He was basically going to be a good patsy,
All these people traveled in the same circles. That is to be sure.
Okay, so
It settles that, I guess. Then. Okay, all right, I see what you mean.
I guess we're basically up to where William is shows up at the, I guess you might want to call it a cavern or the tunnels.
Grotto.
He shows up there and he is he's like strutting his stuff to Casanova, and I don't think Casanova is not liking it very much because he's having Naomi play the violin, and the two of them have words, and he tries to have Naomi play again, and Casanova's no, she plays for me, and he even takes a shot at him, and because he takes a shot at him, Alex hears the shot.
Yeah, they can't find the entrance to this place until they hear the gunshot, and that gives them an idea of where to start looking.
Right. And then they realize that Alex is there when he shoots the lock off of the thing to get in there. So after a bit in a chase, and William gets shot, but William won't give Casanova up. They do actually rescue all the women. So, anybody have anything to add to all that?
Well, it looks like it's going to be a tidy conclusion. Like they're so convinced that they'll, oh yeah, we got him. We'll have this guy figured out like right away. We'll have it figured out right away. It'll be fine. You can go home, Cross. And luckily, of course, he doesn't go home. Like something just doesn't seem quite right yet. And so we get our final reveal of the killer pretty shortly. But that whole sequence is pretty good. With that meeting in kind of like where like the girls are kept, and that little exchange that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember. So because they're twin killers, like they both have their own kind of like stupid nicknames, for lack of a polite way to put it.
Right.
So, I mean, there's Captain Cruz, the main killer, and what's the other guy?
I think William was Leopold.
He
What was what they were calling him? It was like the prom boy or something like
well,
that.
isn't it the name that Dave has chosen for himself here? The gentleman caller, wasn't that it?
That was it. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So the
Well, I know Casanova said something to him like, "What do you think you're the Leopold to me?" or something like that.
Something like that.
That was Cross who said that because they were talking at the office about how it's like, man, this guy, he's working 2 coasts. And they made some comment about him being like so-and-so artist. And then Cross makes the comment about it being Leopold and somebody else, like to imply that it's a pair of guys doing
right.
this. But nobody really called him like Leopold, I think, in any other moments than that.
No, I don't think so. The yeah, we do have that scene. Now I've got to say one thing that I thought was kind of weird, and maybe y'all didn't think it was. I don't know. But as we said, I think it was a group of 3 who went out looking for these tunnels. It was Alex Cross and Kate and was it her boyfriend or Naomi's boyfriend? I think someone said that earlier, but was that?
Yeah, it was Naomi's boyfriend that was with.
Okay, so they go looking, and Cross manages to find his way into the chamber where the girls are being kept. And he tells them, hang tight, I'll be right back. And then the next thing we know, he's back out in the woods. And, I mean, I know he had to find the others, but I just thought that was really strange. And it seemed like, how does he know the others? How does he know that Casanova or whoever weren't hanging around out of sight, ready to do something nasty now that they've been discovered or what have you? It's like it feels
they
almost.
They did shoot at him. They were shooting at him in the woods.
Yeah. What's that? Well, yeah, that was after. They were chasing him through the woods. But like I must have missed something where to find out that he knew to do that. You know what I mean? And maybe I missed something, but it just feels to me like he found them and then kind of left them.
Yeah, which he did. Because he
chased the lamb thing. It's like, no, don't you leave you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then they'll shoot the one and everything, and the other one gets away. The police presence is like, wow, where do they all come from? Because all of a sudden they're all in the tunnels. All the cops are out there. They're looking at this, looking at that. That's when we hear them say, "Oh, he left his fingerprints. We should have him figured
all
out
over this.
12 hours."
Yeah. Because they were looking at his, I guess they said his next batch, his next round, if you will, of young ladies. Yeah.
Yeah.
because he was a meticulous planner, and he had like all of this stuff had been all of his victims had been thoroughly researched, and there's like a whole like. This will probably sound stupid, and nobody else will know what I'm talking about. There's a whole like Arkham City Easter egg, like hidden room with like all these like plans and maps and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think they pretty much figured out who the next victim was too, in that whole, you know, criminal investigation room. I would have to say the lair map of the next victim.
Yeah.
There's some show that called it a murder board. I think that might have been that terrible Velma show, actually. Like somewhere I learned the term murder board.
Well, technically speaking, it wouldn't have been a murder board here because
Just
his
wanted to keep them.
yeah.
Where the other half had a feet fetish.
He wanted
and
to
he
take
was
them
killing
home
them,
and
he was
love them
keeping
and
their feet.
squeeze them. And
And call
I
him George.
blocked that part out because holy shit, right?
Oh, what? That they didn't show all the feet that were kept?
No,
that
that
was the other
at
guy.
all. I was like, excuse me?
Ugh, yeah, that was an interesting predilection.
It was kind of a lot.
That was for the gentleman caller, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was his thing. Yeah, the Casanova had a thing for taking their hair, like he would.
Yeah, because that's why the hair was behind the first girl that they came
But he wasn't set. Casanova,
came across.
Casanova didn't set out to kill him, though.
That piece of hair that was behind the tree, but no one expected it was who the gentleman caller to be the person that it was, did they? The first time around.
The gentleman caller? No, I think we all expected him. Go ahead.
It's Casanova that we don't.
Casanova, yeah. Well, again, I think it caught me off guard the first time. And I will say the reveal is interesting. I don't know if everyone else had the same read on it, but you got this thing where Kate is back in her house and she's invited Detective Cross over for dinner. And he wants to take care of one last thing, but he said he'll be there on, and meanwhile, the Detective Ruskin shows up at her door, and he comes in. She invites him in, and he's helping her fix dinner. And I think by the time she invites him in, we're kind of like, and it's pretty soon after that you know who he actually is. But she doesn't know. It's not until he drops the accent that she knows who he is. And even then, it takes her a beat. And so we have an interesting thing where the audience knows more than she does for the better part of a scene. And I think that was a pretty good thing that they did there in terms of getting the audience interested and kind of suspense and that kind of thing. I think they did pretty well with that, personally.
Unbearable tension, yeah. It's like, oh yeah, here's a knife, help me chop these vegetables.
Exactly.
Yeah, something like that.
Of course, it's kind of a stalemate with him holding a lighter, and him holding the gun.
Oh, wow, you skipped way ahead there.
Yeah. I know I didn't expect him to turn the gun into the milk carton and then shoot
right
through that.
Well, before that, I'm trying to remember. I'll be honest, I'm drawing a blank on exactly what Alex Cross's errand was.
He had to go see Naomi and give her the violin and the
Ah,
string for it. And then
and but
when he went back to the hotel though to get ready, is when he started comparing that handwriting, and it came to him.
that's what it was. He saw the
Yeah.
handwriting. Yes,
Yes,
he
because
saw.
the Casanova does this little thing with his signature.
Yeah,
With its it's a little symbol.
right. And Ruskin did the same thing, and that's when he realized, oh crap. And so he's like speeding back to the house while this other little scene is going on. And that again kind of helps with the tension. And then we finally get to the point where, if I remember correctly, we get to the point where uh, Kate knows who Ruskin actually is. And it's like, if there isn't a Deus Ex Machina here, then she's in trouble. And then we got I got Cross Ex Machina, you know. And he shows up. But yeah, and then you're right. The Ruskin pulls the no, he gets handcuffed to the stove.
And that's got to be a lot of strength to pull that thing on his own weight.
But he yanks and pulls, and not only gets free, but does so by breaking the gas line. Right. And so so Cross like has the gun, and he knows he can't fire it because he'll ignite the gas. But Ruskin's holding a lighter, and he wants to ignite the gas. And then Dave, you mentioned already, he holds the gun to the milk carton, and at first he puts the gun down and gives everyone a false sense of security. And then he uses the milk carton as a muzzle to literally dampen the muzzle flare. Which I don't know if that works in real life, but if it does, that's a pretty fun hack, I guess.
I think it
when he put the gun down, he was eyeing that milk carton when he put the gun down.
Oh yeah, he put the gun right behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, and keep in mind this last scene is a callback to two parts of the movie.
Yeah.
The first, of course, being the very beginning where he's talking down the woman who is kind of like the beating victim who had the gun to her head. That's part one.
Right.
Part two is the scene I have the issue with, where he goes off the handle because he can't control his anger. And that plays off of that as well, where he has to, where we're confronted with the same things, that if he does go off the handle like he did in that scene, he's got to overcome that and not fly off the handle in order to save the woman there. So, I mean, those two are callbacks to that one scene at the end. That's where it pays off at the end.
And actually, I don't think we mentioned that first scene with the woman that he talks down at the beginning, right? That's kind of fun because like she's got the gun jammed up in her mouth. And he's like, why don't you take the gun out of your mouth? And she does like kind of, no. He's like, take the gun out of your mouth and put it to your head. He's like, it'll be just as effective. He's like, it'll be just as effective, but now we can talk. Mm-hmm. And then she does it, and she's like, what kind of cop are you? But I just thought that was kind of amusing. But
he definitely has a way of talking, a way with words,
Well, it's another demonstration of his competence, too, that he's able to find ways out of these situations. So I had forgotten about that, too, honestly. So that is a really good call, Don.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, as much of a problem as I have with that scene where he flies off the handle, it's required to happen for this to be as good a callback as it is.
Right.
Yeah, and he can't be perfect too. You know what I mean? Like I kind of give that moment a pass, even though like realistically it's not something that. Well, I don't want to say wouldn't happen, but something that should happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's unlikely to happen, but
I think in a way it needed to
venue,
because it made him seem more real.
I mean, for the purposes of this movie, you've got to suspend disbelief. So in reality, this person, if he was really that cool and collected and intelligent, probably not. But for all other intents and purposes, we just say, yes, it's needed to happen. This is the one time. The one time. The one time he miscalculated.
Yeah, I think it's fine in that regard too, and I understand your point as well, because I mean you have experience with like psychology and just by your field. So if anybody knows what they're talking about here, it's you. So
I mean, in 20 years, I have never. I've had people push my buttons, but I have never flown off the handle with the consumer. I have pulled myself from the room long before I've ever done that. So you know, and this guy has obviously has much more experience than I have in that. So that's the other thing. You know, he should have. My guess is that let's say we were looking at this dude and he was as competent as he was set up. He would have pulled himself out as soon as he knew that he was already starting to crack with the guy talking about Naomi. He'd have pulled himself right out. But that's just my opinion.
Well, I guess we've made it to the end. So, did anybody figure out who Casanova was before the end?
Nope. Did they even give you any real clues before that reveal? Like I don't think they did. At least none that I can remember looking back on it.
Again, I saw this thing so long ago that I really don't remember if I had figured it out or not. I don't think I had. But one of the reasons I think why the big reveal did stick in my mind, and it was one of the few things I remembered, is that, like I said, I was already a big fan of Cary Elwes, and I knew him primarily through The Princess Bride and Robin Hood Men in Tights. And, you know, I had not yet really seen anything where he played a villain. And so for me, you know, seeing him as a cop, I'm like, okay, well, you know, whatever. And so I think the twist probably did catch me off guard. But honestly, I cannot remember. And this time around, I was kind of paying attention to see if there were clues. I was only somewhat joking that I said the accent was a clue. Other than that, though, yeah, I don't think there were a lot of them.
And they tried to fuck with you throughout the film because the voice of the person in the caves and the tunnels talking to, at least Kate, was the voice of the gentleman caller. So it wasn't like they had actually had Cary Elwes' voice or the detective's voice out in the open for you to listen to.
I didn't think they were the same voice. Maybe?
Yeah, I don't see where you got that, David.
Yeah.
Well, I only heard the gentleman caller's voice.
Huh.
Well, Casanova was able to drop his accent.
I still only heard the guy who played the gentleman caller's voice.
Huh.
Whenever it came to The very beginning, when Kate was captured, that was the voice of the gentleman caller. That was not Carrie Elwes' voice or anything like that. But you only heard Carrie Elwes' voice as the detective whenever you saw him on screen. So that was me.
But when he dropped the accent, he was recognizably the same voice as Casanova. When he dropped the accent and he was talking without an accent, it sounded the same. It just maybe more of a normal speaking voice than before.
And that's how Kate figured it out.
Huh.
Yeah, because there was that moment in the kitchen where she was like, "Oh, that was him."
Yeah.
Kind of moment, but unfortunately, she kind of realized it too late.
Hey, right.
Well, if she didn't, it would have been rather less of a suspenseful thing.
That was a very good suspense scene too. Yeah.
So, does anybody else have any other things they want to bring up before we go into production?
Not that I know of. It was pretty much straightforward, except for the twist.
Okay, well then I guess we should go into production. What is everybody's thoughts on it?
This was very well made. Like there wasn't anything that I didn't think like held up or like looked like not believable or.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the whole thing worked very, very well. Like I'd kind of like to know, did this win any awards? Like what was the reception on this?
It had, according to IMDb, it had 5 nominations. Let's see. From the Blockbuster Entertainment Awards and the Satellite Awards. So yeah, in terms of critically, I guess in terms of most organizations just kind of gave this one a miss. I think overall it did well at the box office, if I remember correctly. I know people were talking about the movie when it came out. I think it was a successful release, but it kind of would have dropped without a trace if it were not for the people involved, I think. But the name recognition kept it in the conversation for a couple of years. And it did help. Like I said, Along Came a Spider was released after this, even though it technically was the first Alex Cross book. And it came out on the success of this one. So, and I remember reading reviews for Along Came a Spider, and the critics were not impressed. I do remember that. But I need to see that one. But that one brings back Morgan Freeman, J.O. Sanders, Anna Maria Horsford, and a couple of others who were in this. Mostly it's a new cast. Anton Yelchin was in that.
Huh?
Okay. And Dylan Baker. Yeah, good times. But
Bill Nunn is in that one too.
Okay, good.
I don't know why when you said that, I thought you said Boris Yeltsin.
Oh, Anton Yelchin.
Yeah.
Very young.
And I do know that this led off a number of collaborations with Morgan Freeman and Ashley Judd, one of which was High Crimes. And I remember seeing that, and I remember being disappointed by it. And I remember one of the reasons I saw it was because I was like, oh, Kiss the Girls was good. Let's see this one. And I think a lot of people probably had the same thing. But anyway, personally, I think it's a good-looking film. It definitely is. It's well shot. It's well staged. They did a good job with the atmosphere, So
I did enjoy the layer of the of Casanova, and from what I could see, I thought that it was an interesting setup where it looked like all the the girls' rooms were like all in a circle, in a sense, where the way they projected that this was underground, I think it gave more depth to a hidden area, that a criminal could hide women in. It was definitely creepy.
I totally agree. I think that was probably one of my favorite parts of the film was the design of the layer, and even the little history that they used is where it was just like this kind of underground Civil War era bunker that some dude that used to have like a plantation over top of it that somebody kind of outfitted, and that I like. I think that's a pretty cool concept.
And
Yeah, I
think
like that part of the production too. I thought that whoever came up with that camp, whatever you want to call it, the tunnels or underground nowhere, I thought that was very, very cool. I mean, that part of the production, I think everything else was very believable and everything too, as far as the scenery and everything. So
Another cool thing as far as the production goes.
Sorry. I thought that was pretty clever how, like, it was a built underground area, but the house above it. Did anybody catch how the house above it had been like destroyed long ago? Like it was just like ruins on top. Like nobody would ever suspect that was there at all. Like it even took them a while to find it themselves.
Right.
Yeah. It was there, so that was like a perfect hideout.
Because all that they had to go on was the fact that it was near water, that it was near trees, and that's it.
Right. Another thing that, as far as the production goes, I see on IMDb that because of the subject matter, they were not allowed to film much of the film on UNC, but much of the film was, especially like aerial and tracking shots, were filmed in the Research Triangle area in North Carolina, Durham, Chapel Hill, Winston-Salem, that area. So and I've actually there was one sequence where they're like driving, and I'm like, I recognize that spot. That's a Duke. It was like, so it's always fun when you get to see a spot in a movie that you're like, I know I've been there. So that was kind of fun. But
what do you mean? Film? Well, they couldn't film certain things. I don't understand.
They because of the subject matter of the film, the UNC authorities
probably
not let them film. What?
Probably more subject matter that they couldn't film from the book.
Well, no, I mean in this movie,
you probably couldn't film someone getting kidnapped on campus.
Yeah, they had to do most of what is shown of UNC and Duke is like aerial shots, just or tracking shots, just letting you know where we're supposed to be. But actual filmed scenes had to be done elsewhere for the most part. I don't know how many of them were filmed in North Carolina, but yeah.
Another thing of the production that I think that I liked was the very beginning credit sequence where they had the photos kind of like move sort of stop motion, like when it went to black and white, when the woman turned in the bed, and things of that nature. For some reason I liked the way that the photos moved in transparency with some of the others, and I know that they didn't do that type of thing in The Long Game of Spider, so I thought it was an interesting way to introduce it.
Okay.
But in any case,
Okay. Well, David, you're the one that's usually good with the soundtrack, so I'll let you go for that part.
well, it did. From what I see here, it had music from John Lee Hooker in a song called "Dimples." "Now You Do" by Hurricane. "I Need Money" by Flame. Partita number 2 in D minor by Johann Sebastian Bach. Sonata number 1 in G minor. I'm guessing these are the songs that were played by Naomi while she was being forced to play the violin. Atom Bomb by Fluke. Bazamba by Sister Salil. "I'll Go Crazy" by James Brown. "I Want to Hug You," another John Lee Hooker. And "Goodnight Irene" by Little Richard. So, interesting music choices per se. And as far as the composer, let's see who that was. That was behind Crash, The Accountant, Godfather of Harlem, 42, the Jackie Robinson story. So he's definitely had, and he's definitely been a recent composer. He did The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent and Black Light somewhat recently. So, but he's been around for a while.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think overall the film had good music, but it wasn't anything that really jumped off the page at me. I think it helped decently setting the scenes. Like I said, the movie's very atmospheric, and the music helps to that. But
Oh, he was the composer of The Hitcher, which is a horror film from the 1980s. So that's kind of
I
cool.
like to see that. That's one of my big blind spots.
But
Okay. Well, then I guess we should go into favorite characters, favorite scenes.
Yeah. Do me last.
Huh?
Do me last.
Okay.
Dustin, why don't we start with you?
It's a little hard to pick a favorite scene, I think. It's gonna, well, whatever. Like, I think my favorite character was just Alex himself because, like, my friend really likes those books, and if Alex Cross in this movie is like Alex Cross is in the books, really interesting, compelling character. I mean, he's maybe a little too good at what he does, but he does like have moments where, like when he flew off the handle like that that proves he's not just some like perfect archetypal detective, for lack of a better way to phrase that. And I think I'm gonna pick like a bunch of different scenes. Pretty much whenever he was doing like detective work was really like compelling, because a lot of times during establishing moments like that, I kind of zone out during movies, and I did not do that here. So that was, I think, like the highlight of the movie for me, was whenever he was like putting things together, and that was really the best part of this. Yeah. So I'll go with that as my favorite scenes, especially during the finale when he notices the handwriting, and when he figures out which variant of that drug has been administered, like the one that doesn't show up in the test results, like specifically that kind, and he's able to look at like the order forms because it's not a common medication. Like it just was really cool to see that character go for it. So, that's what I'm gonna say.
Okay. Is that it? See, Jake, how about you?
Well, I guess I don't know if I have a strong favorite in terms of the characters. I like Alex. I like Kate. I think they're both fun characters, and they do make good kind of foils for each other. They do make a pretty good team, even though she has trouble listening to his instructions sometimes. And I guess he probably kind of, well, strictly speaking, he does have a point. He is the cop, but again, since he's out of his jurisdiction, technically, I guess they both could be on equal footing there. But I think they're fun characters overall. The favorite scene or scenes, like I said, I've got to admit I was amused by that line of like the whole idea of if you put your gun to your head, it will do the same thing, and at least now we can talk. I was like, that's an interesting thought. A little macabre, but interesting. But I think if I had to pick a favorite, I'm probably going to go with the big reveal, the big twist sequence at the end. But I'm including in that Alex is looking at the handwriting and figuring out the thing, because it all plays together. And I do think that had the whole movie had even a fair percentage of the tension that we have in that scene, I think the movie overall would have been stronger. I wouldn't have drifted as much in the middle. But I really do like that particular sequence.
Okay. Brandon?
Well, you know what? I think I will go with I'll go with a Mo and Jake type pick with the sheriff because of the mustache. He definitely had one heck of a mustache.
He did. And the pipe too. The pipe completed the ensemble.
But as far as favorite scene, I like that scene where the two kind of like the two bad guys are confronting each other, where he's got the circle of women with the violins, and Casanova's like, "You've got no right to make them do that," and he's like, "Yes, I do." I like that scene. I like the tension. Yeah, I like this. I like the tension at the end of that scene. I thought it was pretty good. So there you go.
I want to make one more note real quick, since Brandon brought up Brian Cox's character. We should have noted this before. Brian Cox was the original Hannibal Lecter in Manhunter. So bringing him in as the cop on a movie about this sort of... There's a lot of Buffalo Bill echoed in these two characters, even though they are different. I can see some echoes of Buffalo Bill here. And I can imagine that Casanova probably sees a little bit of Hannibal Lecter in himself, at least in terms of being the more erudite and, So it is kind of fun that they brought the original Lecter in to be in the movie,
I thought that guy looked familiar.
Yeah. Oh, he's been in a lot of stuff over the years, but yeah, that was one of the notable ones.
What about you, Tammy? What was some of your favorite scenes and or characters?
Well, of course, Alex is my favorite character. because Morgan Freeman was one of the reasons I even wanted to watch this movie. So, as far as favorite scenes, one of my favorite scenes is definitely when he uses the milk. You know, when he fires the gun and he uses the milk as a way to, not have the muzzle flash, and and have them all blow up. That I've always like. I knew that scene was coming, and it was like, oh yeah, because I like that. It's just whether or not it would actually work would be something that would be kind of fun, kind of maybe interesting to figure out if that would actually even work. But and then yeah, the rest of the ending sequence too is great. Especially when he's looking at the handwriting and he figures it out and everything, and the whole intense fight between Casanova and Kate. That is quite an intense fight there. So,
I just realized why Casanova said, don't try your kickboxing on me, it won't work. It's because he's had like that law enforcement training, which would probably be a lot more advanced than what she's been learning in kickboxing. So that finally just kind of clicked to me. Like, and it was still kind of even battle too, wasn't it?
Well, I think both kidnappers were confident in their abilities and what they could do.
Also,
Go ahead.
Credit where it's due to the actors. Like I said before, Ashley Judd wanted to do her own stunts. She did take kickboxing to prepare for this role. And Carrie Oles did extensive fencing training for The Princess Bride. And I think probably has done some other training over the years. So they both have definitely had some varying types of combat training, if you will. So they do manage to do a pretty convincing slugfest that, it's kind of like, that they put their work in.
All right.
okay, David, your favorite scenes?
Well, I think Ashley Judd and Alec and Morgan Freeman are my favorite characters. As far as favorite scenes go, I think that final final sequence where Alex comes across the signature and ends up finding out who the last character is, and the whole scenery of her cutting up the vegetables and handing him the knife. You kind of expect him to snap at any given moment. I mean, you actually see him cut the phone wires and all that jazz as this is going on, and while he's talking to her. So you expect something to happen. But anything dealing with the lair and seeing what each of the crime scenes portray of each of the characters involved. Just any of those scenes are cool to look at. I do think that they to make it look like there was an intense investigation going on, they did the part. So to make it look like everything added up and looked right and made the audience believe the believable and the unbelievable. So I thought it was entertaining. So that's where I stand on favorites, characters. Did anyone else have anything else to add? Alrighty. Then shall we go around and do our outros then?
Yeah.
Did you have something to say?
I said, yeah, let's go for it. So, I mean, this was a pretty good movie. All the parts really worked very well, I thought. Yeah, it's not a whole lot more to necessarily say.
I didn't think so. So let's start with you, Dustin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I run the Crypt of Horrors YouTube channel, which I'm trying very hard to make some new videos for. So I used to collect horror movie stuff anywhere I could find it. And I would show off all the cool things I would find on my YouTube channel. But I have been kind of forced to take an extended break from that. But I have some stuff shot. I have a few things that I found over the course of last year here and there that I can show everybody. And we're just trying to get to a place where there is time and resources to really start releasing content again. But in the meantime, just go and subscribe to the Crypt of Horrors here on YouTube. And that'll maybe give me a kick in the butt to, oh, people are subscribing. I better start making stuff again. Get it out a little faster. So I also have an Instagram where I post a little bit more often. The Crypt of Horrors as well. And I spend a lot of my time on Twitter as, well, X or whatever it is now, as Cryptaxis, DER Cryptaxis. And eventually I would like to change all my stuff to Cryptaxis since it's a lot easier to look for and a lot shorter. So that's kind of all the stuff I do. And I'm going to head out now. So, yeah, give Kiss the Girls a watch if you like, solid crime thrillers that aren't, I mean, the one killing we see is pretty graphic, but it's really not too nasty overall. So I think if you have like a mid pain tolerance, you should be able to handle this movie pretty well. So. Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye and good night. Like, share, and subscribe.
All right.
Okay, have a good night.
Good night. Alrighty. Heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm Kotobukijake. I am the co-host of the YouTube channel SeptumSin versus the World on the occasions that we meet. And I also keep generally quite occupied right now. Unfortunately, I'm occupied with trying to move, and that's not fun. But also, I got my full-time gig, keeps me busy most of the time. But I do try to make time to watch some stuff. I'll try and join these fine folks once a week and watch some good stuff. And I got a lot of stuff to watch to prepare for next week because we got one thing for the channel, which I actually did already watch today. But then we'll be covering the Coen Brothers, The Big Lebowski next week. So that's going to be good times. But also in preparation for that, I'm using it as an excuse to finally watch The Big Sleep, which I've never seen before. Supposedly that will help me with my appreciation of this rewatch. And I believe next week, Brandon can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe next week we'll be doing our anime anticlimax discussion for his channel, for our channel. Where we'll be covering the mid-90s OVA Oh My Goddess fun 5-episode series. So got a lot of fun stuff coming up. And not to mention that for my birthday, I'll be seeing the new Ethan Coen film Drive-Away Dolls. So I got a lot of viewing coming up this week. It's something to look forward to.
Yep, that is correct. Next, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, we'll be covering that massive series.
Yes, I know. Everyone should join us.
Heading over to you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I go on this channel and another one with my fiance David and review movies with others and I have a collection of my own, and it's just fun to go in the discussions and hear what everybody thinks and watch the different movies. And right now, at this time of the year, I don't have much going on except for work. I'm looking forward to summer to bring my car out.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Brandon. What is it that you do?
Well, SeptumSin, a SeptumSin versus the world. I try to do stuff on the channel, but life seems to always find a way to get in between. But I will be. I do things now and again. I'm working on another Spotlight episode for those who've been enjoying that, and I do keep up with anime updates for those who like anime. So every Monday, I do cover what's coming out anime-wise on Physical. So that's something that people can keep up with. And we hope to get back to the show. I'd like to see Jake housed, and we're also working on our series Tabletop Horror, which will be a good... We're almost to season 1. Once season 1 is done, we will start airing that on a regular, so that's going to be something new. But I'm also on Schlockaholics, and we're a little bit more active. I want to say this week we have a classic cuts of Hellraiser. And then we're going to be discussing on the Saturday. I don't remember, but we do have a discussion this Saturday. So that's going to be good. It's one of Mo's picks. So he's taking a break from the Herschel Gordon Lewis stuff. So I am curious as to where we go from there. He's been trying to do some classic schlock, and we're hoping to get Cody back. But our last episode was Amityville Apocalypse, which has several people here in it. So that was a fun discussion as well. So you should check that out. If you haven't checked out Schlockaholics, you should. And of course, Jake's birthday episode is next week. Even though this whole month has been about Tammy and Jacob's birthday, but his episode, well, his official birthday episode is next week, where you cover The Big Lebowski. So we'll have to make sure we're there for that.
Yep, and I'm looking forward to it because I have not seen it yet. So keep the spoilers away from me. But in any case, my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey we've been having. Definitely make sure you kiss the girls. But let us know down in the comments of what you thought of our discussion and the movie itself. And if you have not seen the movie, go out and see it. I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I go on and do a similar podcasting on Sundays, where I believe we are going to take a weekend off just because I'm going to be going to my oldest cousin's wedding. Finally, the God Caveman is getting married. So looking forward to that, spending the night in a hotel, and not sure when I'll be back, so that's why it'll be coming back the following Sunday after that. But I do believe it is Boris's turn to bring us something exciting. So that being said, I do some video pickups and some video reviews. I also am preparing to put a Blu-ray of at least the first anthology together, because we finally finished the footage and the putting all the bells and jingles on it, so that we can actually have a release of it, at least the first one. And there's also going to be a Boris Origins disc coming out, so that'll be kind of cool, kind of like a prelude to the anthology and whatnot. So yeah, it's going to be a blast. And from time to time, I do some reviews, but it's been some time. But I do some video pickups from time to time on the channel too. If I have not said that before, I've said it now. But in any case, like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you back here next week. So everyone say
Good night.
Not all.